Alright everyone, welcome to our Ranking the Films of M. Night Shyamalan.
Woo!
With M. Night Shyamalan's new movie, The Visit, that just came out in theaters, getting pretty good reviews. If you haven't seen it yet, well, it's been a whole week, so you should have seen it yet if you're going to. So we're going to rank them from worst to best, starting with number 10, which is going to be our worst, up to number 1, which is going to be our best. I'm actually really looking forward to this because despite it being kind of cool to hate on M. Night Shyamalan, you and I are still pretty big fans of him.
Yeah.
I think we kind of have a fondness for his films because we were growing up right around the time that he was making his A pictures, his best pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of still have been holding out, thinking like, yeah, he's had a few bad films, but we've been holding out, hoping he'll make a comeback, make some really good movies because we love them. We love those older ones.
And maybe he redeemed himself.
We'll see. My number 10 is The Happening. I've seen in interviews where M. Night Shyamalan has said that, oh, it's not meant to be taken seriously, it's meant to be a B movie that pays homage to conspiracy films like The Birds and Invasion of the Body Snatchers and that kind of stuff. If he did mean to have a terrible script and cardboard acting, then he should have played it up more with the style. He should have done it like Robert Rodriguez or Sam Raimi or something like that. He should have made it an obvious homage. If he was trying to make a B movie, he failed because he was playing it too straightforward. If he was trying to make a serious movie, well, he failed because it looks like he had a terrible script to work with. It looks like every take, he didn't direct the actors at all. It fails on all fronts. It fails no matter what it wants to be. On the other hand, I would watch this movie again if I were to invite a group of friends over and say, like, you know what, let's just make fun of this movie. Let's just riff tracks the hell out of this thing. The problem is that still doesn't make it a good movie. I can say I love Plan 9 from Outer Space, and this is like Plan 9 from Outer Space level stuff here. I rank this movie right down there with that. But it's that doesn't mean you put it at the top of your list, because he has some legitimately good movies.
I agree with you on that. The writing was painful. The villain was air and plants. The violence is just disturbing and gratuitous, and they kill off 2 kids in a really horrible way that's like meant to be funny, but it's not. So yeah, there is no redeeming qualities about this movie. Clearly his worst, in my opinion.
Lady in the Water has more obvious problems to me than some of his movies that are ranked a little bit higher up on my list. The biggest problem with Lady in the Water is that he has this massive mythology that makes sense to nobody but M. Night Shyamalan. And he shoves all this stuff and all these rules and creatures and this fantasy realm into a movie that takes place in one setting, and you learn about everything through painful exposition dialogue. On top of that, all the characters are caricatures. M. Night Shyamalan has this thing where he gives his characters the little quirks. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In Lady in the Water, their quirks become the entire character. And so you have all these people who are like, look, it's the guy that works out only one half of his body. Oh, look, it's the guy who does nothing but crossword puzzles all day. And that becomes their defining characteristic. And so you get all these characters that don't feel like real people. There is a good movie hidden in here somewhere, and he botched it up by being too strung up in his own mind and not realizing that it doesn't translate well to an audience.
My number 9 is Wide Awake. Frankly, I would rather have a movie that is kind of cheesy and kind of cringeworthy than a movie that's just forgettable. I actually almost didn't put this on my list because I forgot that I watched it. That's how forgettable it was. It's about this little boy in a school with his friends, and shenanigans happen. There's a better version of this movie called Millions, so watch that movie. It is much better. I can't say much else about this movie because I don't really remember anything about it.
Number 8, The Last Airbender. Believe it or not, I haven't seen that much of the cartoon, so I don't have the rabid hate for this film that a lot of people do, because I can't compare it to the cartoon. You get the feeling he just did this because his kids wanted him to do it because it's a popular franchise, and he said, alrighty, I'll do this movie for you kids, and he didn't know what the hell it was about. Much like Lady in the Water, he tries to cram way too much material into a film. From what I hear, it's the entire first season of the TV show, basically, and that shows because, like, the first 75% of this movie is montage of things happening. It felt like it was the first draft of a script, and he didn't do any rewrites or anything like that on it. If someone did do rewrites, they weren't doing their job very well. Poorly directed actors. He didn't know what kind of inflection to give them, what kind of There were things I liked about this movie, though. A lot of the bending stuff was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. Yes, there were silly moments, like the earth bending scene where there's like 5 guys doing earth bending, and like this one little rock goes by. Yes, it has stupid moments like that. The movie is full of little stupid moments throughout. The ending wasn't that bad, actually. It was a fairly good climax as far as I'm concerned, and it left me thinking, all right, well, that was a pretty poor film. What's the sequel gonna be like? Maybe the sequel will be better if someone else takes care of it. Which, of course, we never got a sequel. Rewatch The Happening and then The Last Airbender back to back, and then tell me which one's the worst movie.
My number 8 is going to be After Earth, for very same reasons that Wide Awake was my number 9. After Earth had a really interesting setup and really bland characters. The characters are so bland. The script is so poorly written. There's like one cool fight scene at the end, which is another reason it's number 8 and not number 9. And that's it. That, you know, I can't even...
What do you know? My number 7 is After Earth. Yes, the worst thing a movie can be is bland. If it's boring and forgettable, it's a bad movie. There was enough done competently that I couldn't really rank it like the worst movie of all time. I could see a few 13-year-olds going to see this movie and thinking, oh yeah, that was a good movie. No, it wasn't a good movie. It is just kind of forgettable. It's an interesting premise, and M. Night Shyamalan is the king of cool premises done wrong. And it's one of those ones where I watched it, and as soon as I watched it, I said, we gotta do our video soon, because I'm gonna forget this movie in 2 days. And I more or less have.
Number 7 is Lady in the Water. And the reason that this is number 7 is because there were legitimately cool things about Lady in the Water. Yes, there were parts that were just painful. Yes, he was trying to cram way too much mythology into a short movie. Yes, it was just kind of chopped together, but it did have redeeming elements. And I remember when I first saw this when I was a kid, I actually really liked it because I liked the fantasy elements of it. I liked that, I liked the cheesy, cartoony characters that it had. Not so much when I rewatched it. When I rewatched it, I'm kind of like, yeah, that doesn't really work. But I just thought that the premise was really interesting. Maybe it's just because I really love fantasy. I love this kind of story. I love fantasy set in modern day. If it had simply been, you meet all these characters, they're better, more well-rounded characters, and the whole movie you're trying to guess which ones the lady needs to get her home, that would have been a really cool movie. And if Del Toro directed it and wrote it and completely remade it, it would have been freaking amazing.
My number 6 is Wide Awake. It's not a very good movie. It's just kind of it's a fine family Christian movie or whatever. It's an inoffensive movie, which is better than what I can say for most of his bad movies. It's just there's not enough wrong with it that I could say like, oh yeah, the movie's worth getting mad about. No, it's a movie that a young filmmaker makes to prove to studios that he can put together a story competently. And that's it. It serves its purpose. It was forgotten. Most people watching this video probably had no idea this movie existed. which is where it deserves to be.
My number 6 movie is The Last Airbender.
Haha.
Is there anything I can, like, hang myself with? Because I have a funny feeling if I don't kill myself during this next part, the internet will. Because I'm about to say that I liked parts of The Last Airbender. And I have seen the cartoon in its entirety.
What?
I felt like he tried to cram the entire first season of the show into an hour-and-a-half long movie. And he rushed through it and stripped out a lot of the humor and a lot of the quirkiness that was in the cartoon, which is primarily why it didn't work to me. There were scenes from the cartoon that didn't need to be in there when he's freeing that one earthbending village. That was taken from an episode of the cartoon, except in the cartoon they were on a steamship, I think, that was metal, and there was this whole thing where they were leading them to freedom. There was no reason those characters had to be in the movie. They needed to simplify it, because that's what you have to do when you're making an adaptation, is you need to really simplify it. But what I liked about it was, I thought the production design in this movie was amazing. And yes, seeing the bending from the cartoon coming alive on the big screen was really cool. And as you said, there were cheesy parts of the bending, but I think, like, overall, it was really cool to finally see, you know, waterbending in live action. And, oh man, I'm so gonna get murdered if I say this. But, Last Airbender fans, cartoon fans, the cartoon was amazing, but there were actually some corny parts of the cartoon. In the cartoon, I wanted to strangle Princess Yue. I hated her. And I remember when the movie was coming out, I said to my sister who watched the cartoon with me, I said to her, they cannot do anything in the movie to Princess Yue that will make her worse than she is in the cartoon. And I think that I was right. Yes, Yue was bad, but in the cartoon she was so obnoxious, her storyline was so cliche. Oh my gosh, Sokka's in love with the princess who's engaged to some jerk. We've never seen that before. Okay,